Hello and welcome to 10,000 Stitches Podcast, episode 54. This is a weekly chit-chat all about the joys of small-scale knitting. My name is Andy, and if you were looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and we have the 10,000 Stitches Podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to anything that I mention, shops or patterns or anything like that, if you're watching this on the embedded video on the blog or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video will be a link to the blog post, and you can go there and find all of the links. Today is currently... I don't know why I'm checking my watch. My watch doesn't have the date on it. Today is currently the Monday, the 16th of January. This episode will go live on Tuesday, January 17th. I'm recording on a Monday because I have today off of work because it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So, yay. And I got kind of busy doing some other stuff yesterday, so I figured why not, push it off till Monday. So yeah, it's a little bit dreary and cloudy, but we'll see how the lighting works out. Also, I apologize for whatever it is that my hair is doing. It's kind of in a difficult phase right now because when I got it cut last, I don't think they thinned it properly, and so now it's just doing whatever it wants. But I have a haircut scheduled again for 2 weeks from now, so hopefully that will resolve this. Anyway, the format of this week will be pretty much the same as usual. We'll talk about finished objects, works in progress, what's coming up next. I will talk about my experience learning to darn socks. We'll talk about the knit along, question of the week, and then some chit chat. So awesome. Let's get right into it. So my major finished object this week is a pair of socks that is for my dad. These are his birthday socks. And the pattern that I used for these is the show off stranded socks. And I talked a little bit about this last week, but I love this pattern. Like, this is definitely going to go into sort of my rotation for, sort of brainless patterns, but that still have a little bit of something going on. It's a free pattern, so if you've never tried it or looked at it before, I highly recommend it. It's super easy. And it works really well for variegated yarns like this one. This is... Plymouth Yarns Diversity, which is a wool-free sock yarn. It's a 93% acrylic, 7% elastic yarn. And this color is colorway 9, which I think is like Stormy Skies or something. It's sort of like blues and grays and a little bit of tan. It's just really fun. These were a 72 stitch sock knit on US size 1s, which are 2.25 millimeter needles. And yeah, the pair is now done. So I really need to get these in the mail so he can get them by his birthday because it's less than 2 weeks away now. So yeah, that's my major finished object. I think I already had one of these done when I recorded last week, so not super new, but yeah, got those done. And then after that, I decided to, so let's keep on finished objects. I was going to go into like some works in progress, but let's keep on finished objects. So then I wanted to try and make a pair of short socks for myself. And this kind of, I'll show you guys the socks first and then I'll explain it. So the yarn that I was using for these is the Shirsty Cat Designs, which I finally balled up and used. And this was the colorway Drunken Rainbow. And I got this last year at the Powhatan Festival of Fiber back in April. So it's been sitting in my stash for a while and I really wanted to get it used up. And like, it is just all the colors. And I had been talking about using this for the broken linen stitch socks, but when I saw like how short the color, little splotches were, I decided this would be better as just vanilla socks. So I started with a short sock that I wanted to try and see if I could make like a really kind of well-fitted, tailored, like sport sort of sock. And so this one is, I did the gusset decreases on the bottom, and then I did a band of ribbing around the middle. Otherwise, it's pretty much just a vanilla sock with a really short leg. And I didn't really love the way that it fit, so I decided not to do a second one. I am not going to frog this one because I also have another lonely short sock that doesn't have a buddy, so this one is made out of Patton's Kroy. So I figured, you know what, these two will be buddies, no big deal. And this was knit on a US size 1, again 2.25 millimeter needle, and this was a 68 stitch sock. So then I decided to just go ahead and try just a plain vanilla short sock, and that is this one. This is a 64 stitch sock, which actually fits okay, and it's basically just a plain, boring vanilla sock. But I mean, look at those colors. Ugh. I don't know that it's quite going to focus on it because it's so bright. But I can't even. Like, it's just so much fun. I was so happy knitting this because, like, the colors are just so much fun and you can't not enjoy it. So anyway, so this, just a plain vanilla sock, and it fits really great. So my plan is to sort of make an army of short socks for summer. Because a lot of the socks that I've been making lately are socks that come up over my ankle, which are really great for like colder weather. But during the summer, sometimes I wear shorts, sometimes I wear dresses, stuff like that. And like, I don't want my ankles covered because it just gets to be too warm. So I figured now that I kind of know the basic recipe for making a short sock like this, I'm just gonna make them one at a time, piece by piece, as I finish up other things. And so it doesn't really matter to me if they match. If I wind up with a bunch of single socks, that's fine as long as they all fit the same. So yeah, I'm starting what I'm calling my short sock army. And basically just every single time I clear a project off of my size 1s, which are, my favorite size for knitting socks, I'll knit a single sock. So, who knows? The second one I might knit out of this again because I have plenty left. Or I have some other yarn that I've been, hanging on to. Like I have, some Felici from some socks that I frogged, or I have, just other bits and bobs left over. So who knows what my army will look like. But I'm basically just going to be knitting them one at a time for when the weather gets warm. And I'm shoving them in this box where I'm just going to be keeping all of those sort of short socks. So I have some of these other ones that I've knit before. This was a really early attempt at short socks. I have a neon pair of short socks. So I'm just going to kind of shove them all in here for when warmer weather comes. And then when the warmer weather does come, I'll have a whole bunch ready for me already. So yeah, so that's kind of a finished object, kind of not. With those ones, basically every time I finish one, that's going to count as sort of a finished object, but I'm not really counting them towards sort of my like project count for the year because obviously a single sock is not much of a project. But anyway, I'll probably show them off as I make them. But yeah, that's something that I'm doing. So those are my finished objects. And I'm going to grab a drink of water really quick. And then let's talk about works in progress. So I started a pair of socks for Wesley. And these ones, I'm not entirely sure when they're going to get finished, but these are the Stroop socks. And like I said, I'll link patterns. But they're based off of stroopwafels, which if you've never had a stroopwafel, you should try a stroopwafel. It's kind of like this like cookie sort of thing, and I forget where it's from. I think it's Dutch, maybe. I probably have that wrong. But it's sort of this like caramel filled wafer cookie thing, and which I can't eat because I can't have gluten, but they're really good and Wesley loves them. And so this sock pattern is sort of meant to mimic the look of those stroopwafels. So it's called the Stroops, and I'm knitting it on my US size zeros, a 72 stitch sock, and I'm making this with the Wild Foot yarn that I showed off a little while ago that I frogged from an earlier project, and then I'm also using some black for heels and toes because I don't think I'm going to have enough of the Wild Foot to make the whole sock. But yeah, it's a pretty subtle pattern, especially on a dark yarn like this. Let's see if I can get it close enough without bonking the microphone. But you can see it kind of produces this little bit of a texture pattern on there. And the pattern is written for a 64 stitch sock only, I think. So I kind of had to modify it to make it work for a 72 stitch pattern. And it only works the way that I did it because I'm only doing it on the front of the sock. With the 32 stitch chart, it works so that you can then work it on the front and the back and it will be continuous. But with the 36 stitch chart that I redid, it does not work that way. So, which is fine for me because I'm only doing it on the front. But yeah, I'm not very far on this one. I am still working on the gusset, and this one I think is just going to be a little bit slower because it's charted and every row is kind of different. I have to be looking at the chart, and that means I have to be sitting with my computer in front of me doing it, and so it's just not one that's easy for me to just pick up and work on. So these will probably be a Christmas present for him or something, because I think it's going to take me a little while to get them finished. But who knows? Maybe not. Maybe I will at some point just get sick of having them laying around and finish them. But yeah, that's one work in progress. And then the other one is a pair of business casual socks. I've been talking about these for quite a while now, and I finally started them. And these are being knit with some hand-dyed yarn. This is the first skein that I ever dyed, which never shows up properly on camera. It's a purple skein of yarn. This is a 75-25 BFL nylon blend, and yeah, purple. And so I'm doing the business casual socks, which are sort of this like 1x1 cable pattern that creates this sort of faux argyle look. And I've done these before. Those were actually what I had knit with the Wildfoot yarn that I had to frog. Because the first time I did it, it just came out way too tight. And so this time I'm trying to take precautions against that to make sure that they don't come out so tight. But anyway, these are going to be for my brother. These are a 72 stitch sock, again knit on my US size 1s and a US 1.5. So basically what I did for this one, oh well, I'll show it off first. So this is what it looks like. I've basically finished a little bit more than one pattern repeat, and I'm working on the gusset right now. And so these are short because my older brother prefers shorter socks. I find that most guys tend to either like really long legs on the socks, which no guys I know like that, but I hear the guys like that, or they want ankle socks, which is what most guys I know prefer. So anyway, so I did this, I cast on 72 stitches, I did 15 rows of 2x2 rib, and then and that was on my US size 1s for all of it. And then I switched on the front needle, which would be the needle for the top of the foot. I switched to a US size 1.5 because, like I said, I had done these before and they just didn't have any stretch to them. And I'm pretty sure I knit that last pair on US size 1s. So they didn't have enough stretch, so I really wanted to make sure that that cable pattern on the front had enough stretch to work. So yeah, so I switched to a US 1.5 on the front, and I'm still using a US 1 on the back. And it's working pretty well. I definitely have more stretch on the front here. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to keep using the 1.5 the whole way, or if maybe I will switch back to a 1 on the front for, you know, like after I finish the gusset decreases. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to kind of see how it works up as I go, because I definitely do have a different row gauge on the front and the back, which I don't know if that'll cause problems or not, but I don't want it to cause problems. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm probably maybe halfway done with the gusset decreases right now, so I have a little time before I have to figure that out. But I really am enjoying this pattern. I enjoyed it the first time I knit it because it's just a very simple, intuitive pattern. Like once you kind of figure out like what you're doing, like I don't need to look at the pattern anymore. Like I just know how to do these cables now, which is really fun. And I'm really enjoying it. And this yarn is just really working up nicely. I know it's not quite capturing the right color, but it does kind of capture how like beautifully tonal it is. And I'm really enjoying that. And I'm really hoping my brother likes them. But yeah, and the 1.5s that I'm using are a Knit Pro Zing that was sent to me by a very generous viewer of the podcast. And it's the first time I've really been able to use them. So it's Knit Pro Zing, and I don't think those are available in the US. Like I think you can sort of get them in the US if you buy them off of like Etsy or something, but I don't think retailers in the US have them. And I know a lot of people really love these. I can't say I love it, but I also don't hate it. It's definitely better than a lot of knitting needles I've worked with in terms of having nice smooth joins, which is what I really care about. The tips are definitely not as sharp as like my ChiaoGus, which are what I'm used to working with. And the joins aren't quite as smooth as the ChiaoGus, because I don't think anything is quite as smooth as the ChiaoGus. But if I had to pick something that, you know, has sort of like a plastic cable, this would definitely be my pick. And I'm hoping that retailers in the US get them sooner rather than later, because it would be nice to have like a couple pairs of those, or have like a couple of them for doing magic loop or something. So I don't love it, but I don't hate it. But I would certainly buy more of them if I could get my hands on them. So I guess that's my feeling about Knit Pro Zings. But yeah, so that one's that far. And yeah, that's about it for my works in progress. So let's see, where are we in terms of time? All right, so I'm going to pause, save, and I'll be right back. All right, I don't know why, and I don't know if it's been noticeable, but like for some reason I'm kind of out of breath today, and I don't know. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so maybe that's what it is, but I just feel like I'm very much like trying to catch my breath as I've been talking, but who knows? Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up next. So the next thing I want to cast on is going to be a pair of tube socks for my little brother's girlfriend's daughter. And I've mentioned this before. These are going to be made with this really colorful speckly yarn that I dyed up over Christmas. And I found a pattern for tube socks for kids. Now I just need to kind of figure out what size to make, because I have no idea what size a 4-year-old's foot is. So I need to get my little brother to like try and measure her foot or tell me her shoe size or something. But yeah, I'm gonna make her a pair of tube socks out of this, which will probably be done on my US size 1.5s, so that it'll be nice and stretchy. And that I can basically start as soon as I want to get this wound up, because my 1.5s are empty right now. I'll do it like magic loop with my long one. So yeah, that'll be next. And then I also want to make a pair of socks for my little brother and his girlfriend to send with these guys. So with my little brother, I've been planning on making him a pair of socks out of the Patons Kroy blue striped rag. And this is just a placeholder. I have 3 other skeins of this. I have 150 grams of this, which should be more than enough to make him a pair of socks. I've made him one other pair of socks before, and he really loved them and wears them, I think, a decent amount. So yeah, I thought it was time I make him another pair. I'm not exactly sure like what sort of texture pattern I'll do with this. I'll probably do some sort of texture on them, but I'm not entirely sure what yet. But yeah, that's going to be a pair of socks for him, which will be super fun because he has giant feet. Like, he has the biggest feet of anyone I know that I make socks for. And so, like, even making short socks for him is just a slog. But I know he'll like them, so I'm more than happy to knit for him. So that's going to be the next pair for him. And then I was thinking that the pair for his girlfriend I will probably make out of this yarn, which is another one that I dyed over Christmas. And this is the one that's sort of a very light blue with like little blue and green speckles, sort of like a robin's egg. And I'm not entirely sure, again, what sort of like pattern or anything I'll use for her. I'll need to figure out from my little brother, like, does she prefer short socks, tall socks, like what kind of things she likes. But yeah, and then I'll probably make a pair for her and then try and get all of them sent off in the mail. So that's kind of, you know, gonna be my goal to get done hopefully within the next month, is to get these 3 pairs of socks knit up and then obviously finish what's the business casuals as well. So yeah, that's kind of what's coming up next. So let's talk about darning socks, which is a thing that I learned how to do yesterday. So Wesley, I made him this pair of socks back at Thanksgiving when we took our trip to DC. And these are made out of Cascade Heritage Quattro, which is basically the same as the regular Cascade Heritage. So this is Cascade Heritage Quattro, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. Not exactly the sturdiest yarn in my experience. And for Wesley, not the sturdiest means that he really is hard on them, because he loves these socks. I think partly because they're brown, like he doesn't have any other brown socks and he wears brown shoes. So he loves these socks and has worn them all the time and thus poked a hole in them. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it's obviously been repaired now, but right there, of course I don't think it's going to focus on that. Come on. Focus. There we go. So right there is where the hole was. And it was like right where his pinky toe was. So he went to put it on one time and his pinky toe was sticking out of the sock. And he's like, well, that's no good. And, you know, I was like, oh, that's fine. I'll just knit you another pair. Because as I've said in the past, my attitude about darning socks is holding socks over the garbage can and saying, oh, darn, and dropping them in. But he was like, no, they're my favorite socks. You have to fix them. So I was like, okay, fine. So yesterday I finally sat down and figured out how to fix them. And I was first trying to do sort of like a duplicate stitch fix, which is sort of what you can see on the outside. It didn't work very well. And again, come on, focus. Focus. It didn't work very well because I like missed some stitches or something. I don't know. So I kind of made my best attempt at that. And then I turned it inside out and did sort of like the woven patch fix. Which, I mean, is the uglier sort of way to fix it, but I think it's like the faster way and the easier way to do it. So, we'll see if you can see that. Come on. Focus. Focus. I don't know if it's going to focus on it. maybe. Come on, buddy. Well, anyway, you can kind of see it. So that's like the patch that I tried to put over it. So it's a little bit messy, but it works. It will keep the hole closed up for at least a little while until he wears another hole in them, and then I guess I'll have to fix them again. But yeah, so that was my first experience with darning, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this isn't so hard, especially like doing the sort of woven patch fix. And so if you guys remember, a couple weeks ago, I found a hole in one of my Piece of My Heart socks, and I had said that like I wasn't going to try and fix it because these socks bleed so much pink dye that they're just kind of a pain, and so I was just going to toss them. And I hadn't done that yet. They were still just sitting on the floor. And so I was like, you know what? I'll try and fix the hole. Like, it would be really wasteful to get rid of these socks that are perfectly good except for like one stitch that broke. So I did a little patch on them. So this is actually on the outside of the sock, and I put a picture of this on Instagram yesterday, so Sunday. So yeah, this is on the outside of the sock because I figured that, you know, while Wesley wanted his to be sort of invisible, I don't care. And it was easier to do on the outside of the sock. So you can actually barely see it on the inside. This is what it looks like on the inside. And I probably made the patch bigger than it needed to be, but you know, you live and you learn. But yeah, and then I put these on my feet and wore them all day yesterday, which is why they're sort of stretched out and a little bit dusty. But yeah, so I now know how to darn socks. Go me. I still don't know how often I will do it for my socks. I guess we'll have to see how quickly I wear through other socks. Like so far, these are the only socks of mine that have gotten any holes in them. So we'll have to see kind of how it plays out. I might just put the other socks in like a basket or something and darn them in groups. But yeah, at least now I know how to do it. So that's pretty cool to say. So yeah, let's talk about the knit along. So we're doing the Cables or Something Blue knit along right now. We currently have 6 finished objects, and it's only halfway through the first month, so that's pretty awesome. I'm hoping we'll see a lot more finished objects coming in kind of probably towards the end of the month, once people have had a little while to be working on them. But it's been really fun seeing the finished objects that are coming in. It's been really, you know, fun being in the chatter thread and everything. And I know I'm not really participating a ton, just with the things that I'm knitting. I mean, I guess I did knit a pair of blue socks, and I am knitting a pair of cabled socks. But like I said, the next ones are kind of going to be these 3, and this one is the only one that's I would call blue. These are certainly not going to be cabled, and I doubt these will be cabled. So yeah. But, you know, I guess I'm kind of following the theme a little bit. But that's kind of why we're having, like, the color and the technique theme, is so that, you know, you don't have to devote a bunch of time to doing one particular thing, right? You can knit a pair of socks or a hat or something with, like, one color, and that gets you in, and you don't have to do the technique. But, yeah, I'm really super excited about it. It's been really fun. And, yeah, keep on throwing up, you know, progress pictures in the chatter thread and finished objects in the finished object thread. So, yeah, fun. And then let's do the question of the week. I don't know why I'm so out of breath today. I don't like it. Maybe I'm talking faster than I normally do. Maybe that's the problem. If so, I apologize. Okay, so question of the week. And this is sort of a selfish question of the week because this is something I really want to know the answer to, and I don't know the answer to it. So I had talked a little bit about how I'm storing a bunch of my short socks in this basket, and like, it looks very full right now, but that's because I also have all of my store-bought short socks in here that I haven't been wearing lately, so I figured I would toss them in here, and I mostly just use those kinds of things for going to the gym these days. But yeah, so these are sort of my short socks that are being stored in here, and it has a lid, and it's just been sitting kind of on my bookshelf that I put my clothes on. And then this is where I keep my sort of longer, like, winter socks. And this is not all of them. And a couple of these, like, these are commercial socks. These are commercial socks. And then I have a bunch that are in the laundry right now, too, that need to get folded up. But anyway, this is how I store the socks that I'm currently wearing. So my question is, how do you store your, like, out-of-season knits, right? Because most of us that live in places with more than one season, there's going to be times of the year when certain things just aren't appropriate, right? Like, you're not wearing a lot of knit hats in the summer. Similarly, you're probably not going to be wearing a lot of knit sweaters in the summer, stuff like that. So, like, how do you store your knitwear that's not in season currently? I was planning on probably just sort of swapping the contents of these two things, right? So once it gets to be really warm summertime all the time, I would probably take my short socks and put them in this basket and take these socks and put them in this bin, since it has a top to it. But is there something else I should be doing? I know I've heard about like lavender or cedar or whatever to like keep bugs out. What's the best way to do that? What should I be doing to store sort of out of season things to keep them fresh and happy for when I pick them back up again in the fall? So let me know what you do. I'm very curious. But yeah, that's going to be it for the knitting type stuff. So if that's all you were here for, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Otherwise, I'm going to pause and save, and then I'll be back with a little bit of chit chat. All right, so chit chat stuff. Let's see. I had a really boring week at work. I think I talked a little bit about this last time I recorded, but like we're kind of in the point where I'm back at work, but classes haven't started yet. So, you know, I've been working on some projects and stuff, but it's kind of had a lot of just really boring days, which, I mean, that's just kind of how this goes. But yeah, so I don't have really anything very interesting to talk about in terms of work. I mentioned last week that we had snow. I think I recorded on Sunday, so I think it had just sort of finished snow. Well, it had finished snowing on Saturday. So we got the day off on Monday, which was super fun. Even though it wasn't snowing anymore, like we got the day off for snow removal, and which was especially funny because Sunday it was, you know, I think I mentioned that it was really sunny outside, and so I went for a walk, and it was decently warm outside, and snow was melting. And I think again on Monday it was decently warm, but you know, campus is very large, and it's more so that it was icy. Like the snow kept like melting and then refreezing, and so there was just ice everywhere. So it was probably a good idea to shut the university down so they could get all the snow cleared out, get the ice cleared out. So yeah, so we didn't have the university was shut down on Monday. We had a late start on Tuesday, which I kind of just ignored because I was like, that does me no good, right? Like I don't drive, I walk to work. And so for me, it was like, no, I'll just go in and get stuff done. Because if I waited until 11, which was when the university opened back up again, it's like, okay, well now that's lunchtime for me. And then we're getting into the afternoon, which is like my least productive time of the day. So I just went to work anyway. And then the rest of the week was just kind of a meh, whatever week. But yeah, so now I mentioned today is Martin Luther King Day, and then classes start tomorrow. So in terms of teaching, I don't actually start any of my teaching until next week, and that's for like my upper level lab that I teach. And then all the other lower level labs that I'm in charge of start the week after that. So I still have, you know, 2 weeks until most of my job starts, and then a week until my teaching starts. But I am taking a class again this semester. I talked a little bit about this, I think. I'm taking another stats class. This one's an intro to probability class, and that starts tomorrow. So 9:30, I'll be in class again, which I'm actually really excited about. I kind of enjoy the structure and kind of the, I don't know, just the structure that it gives my life, like the fact that I have things that need to get done by a certain time. And I mean, of course my job has that too, but it has a little bit less of that. Like it very like comes and goes with my job versus like with class, you know, you typically have homework due every week or every other week or something. So it's kind of more constant like work that needs to be done, and I really enjoy that. So yeah, I ordered my textbook. I don't have my textbook yet because the textbook was stupid expensive. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but like how expensive textbooks are to me is kind of a weird revelation because where I went to undergrad, we didn't buy our textbooks. It was part of the university that we rented all of our textbooks through the university. And it just got like tacked onto our student fees, but I don't think it was very much. It was maybe like $200 or $250 a semester that got just added onto your student fees. So like it was just kind of like all that money you had to pay every semester, and you never had to like fork it out directly. And then we would just go to the university book rental place. I forget what it was called. And you'd scan your ID card and it would print out a list for you, and you would just go through these shelves and just pick out your books and go check them out. And then at the end of the semester, you just brought them back and returned them. So like I never had to buy textbooks in undergrad, which was really great because I double majored in physics and chemistry, which are very expensive textbooks. So, So yeah, it wasn't until I got to grad school that I really had to buy textbooks. And even then, I had a fellowship which paid, like, reimbursed me for all of my textbooks. So even then, I didn't directly have to pay for any of my textbooks. And so now that I have to buy textbooks, it is just unreal to me how expensive they are. And like the textbook for this semester, we needed like the 7th edition of whatever it was. And I went to the bookstore and I was like, okay, how much is this going to be? And it was going to be like $220 to buy a used copy. A used copy. And like even through Amazon, it was gonna, like, the cheapest used copies were like $140. And I was like, what is this craziness? Like, what the heck? And so I emailed the professor and I was like, can I use the previous edition? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, she has a copy of the previous edition, so she gives homework questions. Like, she gives the numbers for the current edition and the previous edition. So I was able to get the previous edition for like $60, which I mean is not insignificant, but like it's cheaper. But it was just like, just ridiculous, like how expensive textbooks are. And it's just, I see it as sort of a racket because it's like, you know, you don't need to be putting out a new edition every other year. Like, especially with things like math or physics, where it's like, there's not a lot changing. You don't need to be putting out a new edition all the time. And it's just greed on the part of the publishers that they do that. And they charge so much for it because there's no competition. And now I'm getting upset about it. I need to stop. But anyway, so my class starts tomorrow. I'm super excited about it. And I'm just super excited for the rest of the semester to start and kind of get back into, like, you know, the routine and the groove of everything. But yeah, I also thought that I would really quick do an update on sort of my goals for the year, and then that'll probably be about it. Because like I said, it was a really boring week, and I'm tired because anyway, so I'm tired. But let's talk about goals. So it's the middle of the month, right? So let's, you know, I figured we'd kind of recap. So, oh, someone with a really loud radio is driving by. Anyway, so I thought, so basically the goals for the year were read 25 new books, watch 25 new movies, knit 25 projects, and save 25% of my income, which basically boils down for most of those to, you know, read 2 books a month, watch 2 new movies a month, and knit 2 projects a month. And then some month in there I have to do 3. And then the save 25% of my income, right, is just every paycheck, how much did I save? So I have now read 3 books this month. I've mentioned them before. It was The Disappearing Spoon, which I highly recommend. The Fattening of America, which was pretty good. I don't necessarily recommend that unless you're very interested in the topic. And then Going Clear, which is about Scientology. I finished that one this past week. That one is just, I definitely recommend it if you're curious about Scientology, right? If it's something that you've kind of heard a lot about, but you want to know more about it. It's sort of like a narrative of like L. Ron Hubbard and his sort of life. It doesn't go, I mean, it does present the beliefs that they have, but it more so goes into like the history of like the church sort of being built, which is very interesting and very well written. So if you're curious about that, I definitely recommend reading it. And then I just started Let's Explore Diabetes with Owls by David Sedaris, who's kind of like an essayist. So it's like a collection. That's the word I was looking for. It's a collection of essays and stuff. He's really funny, and it's really nice because like that one I can kind of like read part of it and put it down, and it's not like, you know, every chapter is different. And then the next book I think I'm going to read at work is going to be Your Inner Fish, I think is what it's called, and it's sort of about like how we supposedly evolved from fish. I don't really know. It's another one that I picked up at the school library book sale, so I'm like, I might as well read it. But yeah, so I've hit my book reading goal for the month, and I've definitely hit my movie watching goal. I've watched 4 new movies so far. The latest being Alice Through the Looking Glass, which is the sequel to Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, which I loved Alice in Wonderland, right? And I'd heard not so great things about Through the Looking Glass, and so I was kind of hesitant to want to watch it because I was afraid that it was going to be as bad as people said it was. And it was good, but it definitely, the plot is a little bit lacking, right? Like the plot's a little bit weak, but it's still a fun movie to watch. So if you liked the first one, I would recommend watching it, but maybe not with like sky high expectations. But yeah, so I've watched enough movies for the month. In terms of my knitting projects, right, I have one project that's finished. And then I definitely think I'll be able to finish these, the business casuals by the end of the month. So for that, I'm right on track. And then in terms of the saving 25% of my income, I've talked before, I'm doing this like uber frugal month thing, which basically is don't spend any money that you don't have to. And so it's not really been like fun per se, because it's been making me realize how much money I spend on just nothing. Like, for us, like a big issue is going out to eat. Like we eat out more than we should. And we also make a lot of like snack runs that we really shouldn't be doing. And so, this has really brought into light like how much of that we've been doing. But we've been doing really well. We've only eaten out, we've only not eaten at home once so far this month, and that was on Saturday because we were out and about and it was lunchtime and we were both hungry. And on top of that, we also didn't have any food at home. Like I hadn't gone grocery shopping yet, so we had nothing to eat at home. So we went to Whole Foods and got like their hot bar, because that was like the closest we could come to like eating at home. We're like, well, this feels less bad than going to a restaurant. But then again, at the end of the day, like that's an expensive lunch. Like it was like a $22 lunch. So it was like, we probably should have just gone to Chipotle or something. But anyway, so we've been really good with that. We've been really good with like not making runs to the store to pick up snacks. Definitely been working on like the, we need dish soap. Let's run to the store and only get dish soap. So that's kind of a thing we're working on. And so, yeah, so I just got paid on Friday. So I was looking then at my last paycheck, like, because I got paid, I think on December 30th or something. So I was like, okay, so for the first half of the month, how did I do? And I managed to save 38% of my paycheck for the first half of the month, which is only a little bit above the 33% that I want to be saving, which, I mean, of course, is above the 25%, but like 33% is about what I budget to save. And so the fact that I was able to save more than that makes me feel pretty good. So yeah, so that's been really exciting. We'll see if we can keep it up for the second half of the month. And then we'll have to see sort of at the end of the month, like if the mindset has changed. I definitely feel like it is changing, where I definitely feel less resistant to eating at home. And I mean, I still want to eat out like all the time. Like I'm still like, oh, you know what sounds really good? But I'm getting better at separating like, oh, it sounds good versus like, do I need it, right? Like I have food at home that I can eat. I might as well just eat that. And something that's been really helpful with that, which I don't know, sharing this might help other people. It definitely helped me. And like, it seems simple in like when you just hear it, but like it really was like a revelation once I started to implement it. But for me, what really was a barrier to eating at home was dirty dishes. If you've seen the episode where I was dyeing yarn in my kitchen, you've seen how small my kitchen is. We have no counter space. And so like any dirty dishes that pile up take up food prep space, right? Like they take up space in the sink or space on the counter, which is space that I need to be preparing meals. And so, it's really discouraging when you have a mountain of dishes already before you go to make dinner. And it's like, now I have to wash all of these, because we also only have 3 plates, 3 bowls. We have 2 mugs for each of us. We have 2 silverware like settings. It's like we don't have a lot of stuff. So like it has to be washed after every meal. And so, so kind of what I read this somewhere, and it basically just said that like the meal isn't done until the dishes are clean, which was like mind blowing to me. Like it just completely shifted how I thought about it and made me realize like, okay, future me, right? Me a couple of hours from now is not going to want to do the dishes any more than me right now, right? And it probably will be that me in the future wants to do the dishes even less, because I know from experience that when I leave dishes sitting like from the night before and I get up in the morning and that's the first thing I'm faced with as I go to make coffee is like a mountain of dishes, it just starts my day off in such a sour note. And so it's like, okay, how about current me takes care of future me by just doing the dishes? And so I've really been getting into the habit of after every single meal, I do the dishes right away before I do anything else. Doesn't matter how much I want to go do other things. I have to do the dishes right then, which keeps them from piling up And it just has really made my life a lot better, because it's like, I don't walk in anymore at the end of the workday. Like, I don't walk in at dinner time and see a bunch of coffee mugs from the morning sitting around because they've already been washed. And I don't wake up in the morning and see dinner dishes from the night before because they've already been washed. And it means that if I want to cook, I don't have to deal with the fact that, like, oh, I never washed the pan from last night, because again, we only have a couple of pots and pans. It's like it's already been washed. So everything's already clean. Everything's already ready to go. The counter's nice and clear. And it just makes my life a whole lot better. So if you are struggling with, like eating out too much because you just can't handle the mess in the kitchen, try it. It's not exactly fun. It's not like I love doing dishes, but I definitely prefer it this way than coming back and finding them later. Plus, they're a heck of a lot faster to wash if I do them before, like, the food gets all, like, crusted on, right? If I do it kind of when, like, the dirty is, like, fresh, it's a heck of a lot easier to wash dishes then. So, highly recommend, give it a try. It might change your life, because it has totally changed my life. And I should note that we do have a dishwasher, but I don't use it because I don't like dishwashers. I grew up without a dishwasher. We did all of our dishes by hand growing up. And again, it's not that I love doing dishes by hand, but I don't like dishwashers because they're really noisy. Like, I have used dishwashers before. I had one when I was in grad school, and then we had one when we were in Wisconsin that we used. But I find them to be really, really noisy. And at least the ones that you typically get in apartments. I know there are some dishwashers that are really silent. Like, Wesley's parents have a new dishwasher that is super quiet. And in that case, sure, why not? But I don't like the noise that most dishwashers make. And I'm just naturally distrustful of appliances that, like, use running water. Because even though I've never had an experience with, like, a dishwasher or a washing machine, like, flooding, an entire room, it does happen. And so for me, I'd rather just not risk it. I know that's a little crazy, but that's just how I am. Like, I feel the same way about the washing machine, but I have to use the washing machine because ain't nobody got time to be washing clothes by hand. I've done it a couple of times when, like, the washing machine has been broken or something, and I don't enjoy it. So it's like I use the washing machine, but the fact is I don't need to use the dishwasher. And like I said, we only have a couple of, like, plates and bowls and stuff. So, like, we would basically have to put all of our plates and bowls in there to make it, and cups and stuff, to make it actually worth using. And like with dishwashers too, you, like, have to, like, pre-wash everything. And it's like, I'm not going to pre-wash my dishes just to wash them again. I'll just wash them the first time. So yeah, our dishwasher is basically a glorified drying rack that we put everything in to dry. But yeah, I'm getting rambly. It's about lunchtime, and this has gotten longer than I expected it to. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. If you hung on this long, thank you very much for watching this whole time, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.